Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to Bonafide Investing, where we talk all things high yield investing, stocks, options, investment ideas, investment goals in general. If you're new to the channel, welcome. A little bit of background. I took a large portion of my net worth, about 20%. I have built out a high yield, all weather portfolio that I call Cash Flow Life here that seeks to, number one, pay my bills, and number two, maintain and pay down my margin. So far, so good. Each week, I like to give updates on what Cash for Life is doing, changes I've made, and love to hear your thoughts and comments as we go. Please hit like and subscribe if you like what we're doing here. Please help support the channel. And again, everything we discuss here is not financial advice, not now, not ever. So please do your own due diligence before making any financial decisions. When I was in college, there was a movie that came out called Office Space. If you're not familiar with it, that's unfortunate. But there's a good part where Peter Gibbons, tells his friend he's got 8 bosses, right, telling him what to do, TPS reports and all this other stuff, and tells the Bobs that it's hard to work that way with eight bosses. So it always stuck with me, right? It was always a goal never to have bosses. And though I did have a business at one time, I did go into the financial services industry for a good, well over a decade, and just decided I didn't want a Bob. I didn't want a boss, right? And that might be you, might not be you. But it always goes back to the why, right? I did this because, not only did I not want to have a boss, I don't do well with bosses. It's not that I don't listen. I just, it's just not for me, right? It's not for everybody. So Cash for Life has allowed me to avoid the Bob and avoid the 9 to 5 and, do the things that I want to do. What are those things? I want to spend more time with my kids. I only have so much time with them, right? They're getting older. They're getting bigger. They're going to have their own lives before I know it, right? Pursue hobbies. I have quite a few hobbies that I really enjoy. And I wanted more time for those. It's amazing, for those of you who have hobbies, you understand that you just dive into one day and your day is almost over before you know it, right? I want to travel. I've been fortunate. I've been able to travel a lot of places and see a lot of things. And I have family in other places of the country who I like to go see and spend time with. So that's my why, right? I'm hoping, we've talked about the why on this channel many times before, and I hope you found your why when it comes to high yield investing. You found your why, I'm sure, somewhere along the way of why you studied or trained in a certain field to do what you do, right? I'm sure you found your why in investing to an extent, but it goes to why are you doing this? Is it to avoid a 9 to 5? Is it to generate some side income, to have some fun with? Is there something in between, right? So what is your why? And then why do you own the investments that you own? You've got to have a purpose, right? God made you for a purpose. He made all of us for a reason, right? We're not here by accident. So I think purpose is important in everything that we do, right? So have your why, have your purpose, especially when it comes to high yield investing. Again, it's not the only way to invest. I have not put all of my eggs into this one basket. So this portfolio's sole purpose is to pay my bills. That's it, right? So I want to be mindful of risk. I want to hedge the downside. I want to make sure that I'm aware of how much I can lose before how much I can make. That's the key. I look at it like this. Over the next 10 years, I'll have reinvested roughly about $500,000 back into Cash for Life. And if the balance after that $500,000 is still right around where it says 451,000, I'm investing around 618,000, then I'm happy. It did its job, right? I paid all my bills and I didn't have erosion, right, throughout the portfolio. So again, high yield investing, one thing that we want to be mindful of is NAV erosion, right? Even in good funds. And when I say good funds, I just mean lower yielding, right? That they don't succumb to NAV erosion as much, and they typically will grow with the index. Something like a QQQI and a SPY-I, right? That doesn't mean they're necessarily better than something else. I just mean good in the sense that I want to build around those because I don't want NAV erosion over the long term. So again, not to ramble and rant, but don't forget why you're doing this, right? And don't get emotional about your investments, right? I always say, trust God. You got to rely on math. You got to rely on the charts. and you got to ignore the noise. You're going to have ups and downs. Volatility is part of investing. If you can't handle volatility, just, take a deep dive within yourself and see if you should be investing in the first place. So with all that said, let's dive in and look at where Cash Flow Life is at. Cash Flow Life was up about 0.5% this week. The markets were up around 1%. The S&P was up around 1%. I think the NASDAQ was up around 1.25%. Again, I don't rely on Robinhood performance. I don't think it takes into account distributions. I've said that in the past. But I did add some options. I had a comment this week, was pretty nice. Someone actually said something about Figma. I actually was looking at the Figma charts. I opened up a Figma position midweek. The $26 call, I think this is due for a bounce. The VIX, the market had a huge rally off of the tariffs being shot down by the Supreme Court. So I saw the VXX calls, the Q puts, the SPY puts fall hard. No biggie by me. I'm actually happy when the portfolio insurance falls. That means things are going well. I did mention in an earlier week video that I did open some calls on PayPal, oil, natural gas. I added to rig, bought up FIG, and then opened one in a 2x levered Microsoft call as well. And then I bought a put on the financial services, the charts on the financials, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, for example, some of the larger banks. Weren't looking too good. The call's down so far, no big deal, right? I bought it out for about a month from now. So we'll see what happens over the next month. Again, since I did buy, I have the full control. I have the right, not the obligation, right, to exercise these calls and puts, or I can let them expire worthless. I may be doing some wheel on some levered ETFs this coming week. I thought the markets would be down this week. I was wrong. I still think markets are headed down. I just think that we got a little bit of a bounce, but I think there's a higher chance of us going down than up. So no big deal, right? Looking at some other charts, I'm going to be reviewing some charts this weekend when I have some spare time. Just looking and seeing if there's any opportunities out there. So right now, to give you some updated stats, let me go through some stats here. Right now, we have $618,722 invested. That is between my principal that you can see here of $451,035.83. We've got $167,686.53 of margin being used. So that is 27.1% margin, 72.9% equity. So I'm at that higher range of the margin I like to use. I don't like to go over 30%. And my overall yield right now, the total annual income being generated based on the latest updated numbers is $189,461.75. That is a 30.6% annualized yield. And if I break that down across the individual sectors and pieces of Cash Flow Life here, the short ETFs, YQQQ, SLTY right now make up about 25.9% of the allocation. My long ETFs and closed-end fund, that would be like your CRF, all the NASDAQ, S&P 500, and Russell 2000 positions. They make up about 30.2% right now. The TLTW position makes up 8.8%. Gold, commodities, and real estate, that makes up 22.9%. The reason that jumped, I opened up that position in XOMO of 1,000 shares. The high yield ETFs, just think that's basically ULTY. My ultra high yielder right now makes up 7.4% of the portfolio. And my options values right now make up $29,671 or 4.8% of the portfolio. Again, being able to use this leverage, right? I had a good comment. Somebody wanted to know about buying the puts and calls. I'm not selling as much. I sold a lot of puts and I sold a lot of calls to kind of build up Cash Flow Life to generate more income. You do lose the control on the sell side. You act more as the insurer. You're saying, hey, I'm willing to buy those shares at this certain price up by this certain date, right? But I'm going to require a premium for you to have that right. Same with calls, right? I'll sell you these shares at a certain price, but you got to pay me for that, right? Having the right now, being on the buy side, I like it because I can use a lot more leverage for a lot cheaper. I'm not risking a lot, right, in these positions. So I think, again, the risk to reward on the buy side, when you're playing the data, the charts, and just not going overboard on these options, I think is a much better way to generate income for the portfolio. So I'm just a lot more on the buy side, especially than I even had up to 3, 4, 5 months ago and before that. So some other things coming this week. Yeah, I don't know. I think we're headed down, but we could still grind a little bit higher for a little bit longer. Definitely a possibility. No big deal. If we do break, I mentioned before, if we do break resistance, if the NASDAQ does push above about 24,500 to hold above there, I'll probably unwind a little bit of YQQQ, just because I think then the markets will be headed a little bit higher from there once we can push through resistance. And if the S&P 500 pushes through that roughly 7,100 mark and holds above there, I think we're probably headed higher, right? So I am not in that camp. I still think there is massive, massive market resistance, and this market is just so overheated and just so expensive. There's not a lot of value. I'm going to hedge my bets towards the downside. Keep those hedges on for the time being. Ulti my long short. What I like about this right now, it's paying me about a little over $1,000 a week. I dollar cost average back into the majority of these ETFs and closed-end funds each and every market day of $200. On the extreme down days, I double that. But what's nice is Ulti and Salty are basically paying for that dollar cost average back in, and then the rest of my holdings are paying my bills, right? Doing all the heavy lifting there. So again, Cash Life is my business. It's my pension. You got to look at your portfolio however you want. But as cheesy as it is, as cheesy as it sounds, these are my employees, right? These are the guys working hard, gushing out that cash. And again, I have my business insurance on. Businesses have insurance, fire insurance, employee insurance, I don't know, market insurance, whatever they have. They're always reinvesting back into themselves to grow and expand. That's what the dollar cost averaging does. So again, look at it how you want. I don't mind being cheesy, right? It is what it is. But last thing, my margin buffer is staying above 60% is nice. It hasn't really fallen below 60% in a while. I'd say about a month. And I like to keep it above 50% just to have that extra cushion. And again, guys, know your why. We'll go back to that. Just because I live off this portfolio, it doesn't mean I'm, it was never a goal to become a lazy slob like Peter Gibbons going back to Office Space, right? That's not the goal. I don't want to sit around and do absolutely nothing. I keep my skills sharp. I try to learn. I try to grow. I try to expand. Ultimately, you got to stay humble. If the markets haven't humbled you yet, I think everybody should be humbled as an investor at some point in their lives as a growth and learning lesson. You've got to stay humble. Markets can do anything, right? And so, again, know your why. I mean, you can be a lazy slob. That's your right at the end of the day, right? If you want to have a high yield portfolio to let you sit around and do nothing, that's right. I don't recommend it, right? Again, I think you're created for a purpose to be useful and beneficial in this life, but it's your right. You can do it. Okay. So again, love to hear your thoughts and comments. I plan to make some videos, hopefully this week, time permitting. Please hit like and subscribe. I said it earlier, but trust God, rely on the math and charts, and ignore the noise. Hope you got something from today's video, and have a good day.